Welcome to Make It Rain with Adam Schein on Peterson, the sports betting network.
Yes, Wednesday edition of Make It Rain with Adam Schein here on Peterson. And my goodness, we've got an unbelievable show for you today. Nothing like day baseball. We're going to shine on baseball. We have the Dodgers and the Padres. Just picture perfect starts, literally, for the 2025 campaign. What a night in the NBA. Hope you had the over for Jokic and Steph Curry. I mean, historic nights at the office. We've got some NFL news dealing with gambling. We will get into our news, notes, nuggets, and nightly plays coming up as we move along. Greg Peterson is going to join us, talk some Final Four, lock in some bets with our guy, Greggy P. There's nothing I love more than day ball, baby. I just love baseball, love watching baseball, love betting on baseball, having a great start when it comes to betting on baseball for this season. And listen, you're just going to have to trust me on this. I split today with the Reds and the Rangers. I had Terry Francona on my SiriusXM radio show today, and I was feeling great and feeling like a little show karma and mojo, so I bet the Reds money line, but I also had the under, so win one, lose one when you take a look at the results from the Rangers and the Reds this afternoon. Pitching duel with Jack Leiter and Hunter Green. 1-0 the final score. And listen, if you are a fan of the Texas Rangers, to be able to get back-to-back games where your starting pitchers throw gems. Jack Leiter, by the way, is 2-0 on the baseball season, and that's pretty incredible. We talked about how vital Jack Leiter was when you take a look at his ability to live up to where he was drafted, and when I picked the Rangers to ultimately represent the American League in the World Series. And Nate Eovaldi was sensational yesterday. So Rangers, Reds, nice 12:30 Eastern time, 9:30 on the West Coast. For all of our guys, of course, in the Vegas control room. I got to give my guy Sean a lot of credit. Not only was he getting all the graphics ready, he got bagels and coffee for everybody this morning to watch a little day ball. So the Rangers are able to beat the Reds. And how about the Pirates and the Rays? And Paul Skeens on the bump, and that means it's happy Paul Skeens Day, which is ridiculously incredible. And take a look at the updated score. This is good stuff. 2-1, the Pittsburgh Pirates leading the first place Tampa Rays. Skeens, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, 4 strikeouts from Mr. Paul Skeens today. How about a little check at the Royals and the Brew Crew? Royals and the Brewers. Royals need a victory. I expect the Royals to be better. They've been mediocre to start the season. Brewers pitching has gotten a bit better after the rocky start, after they were torpedoed, pun intended, by the Yankees over the weekend. Then obviously got bashed by Kansas City earlier this week. 1-1. Guys, go back to that board for a quick sec, right? It's the 7th inning. I find this interesting, right? And I understand strength in numbers on at-bats, but Royals money line at plus 390. I don't know. I might have to live bet that when we go to commercial. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. And how about the Angels and the Cardinals? Quietly, the Angels have been on a 4-game winning streak, and I mean very, very quietly. Cardinals are off to a solid start. They busted out the brooms over the weekend and swept away the lowly Minnesota Twins. Cardinals are winning this afternoon. It's in the 6th inning. It's 3-1 Cardinals. I think the big number is 1 in terms of first home run of the season for Mike Trout. Take a look at the score. 3-1 Cardinals leading the Angels right now. When you take a look at the money line right now at minus 160 for the St. Louis Cardinals. So obviously this is a tremendous slate of games here for Major League Baseball this afternoon. So we will keep you updated. Nothing like day ball and nothing like picture perfect early season performances if you're a fan of the Dodgers or if you're a fan of the San Diego Padres. And let's start with LA. Dodgers remain perfect. Mookie Betts with the go-ahead home run against Chris Sale. Are you kidding me? Absolutely, positively amazing. Dodgers are a flat-out machine right about now. And, I thought the big story was Dustin May. What a tremendous job by Dustin May. First time he's pitched in over a year. Dustin May was absolutely incredible. 5 dominant innings. And, remember, he had that issue with his esophagus and, couldn't pitch. He's got out of this world stuff. So if you're the Dodgers or if you're a Dodger fan and you have, Dustin May and Glasnow getting back to form with that lineup and the juggernaut offense they have, that's great stuff. I mean, check out the Dodgers odds board. I mean, it's about as great as it gets in terms of best bets and sure things and feeling great about LA and why we picked the Dodgers and why we believed ultimately that they would have this incredible ability to win the World Series. By the way, look at that number. There was a period of time in the offseason of plus 390. Then before the season is plus 290. It's already down to plus 250 for the LA Dodgers. And I get it. So Dodgers, 162-0. I'm going to keep making the joke because it's funny, because it's true. But how about the National League West, man? And we'll get to the Diamondbacks and we'll get to the Giants coming up in a little bit. But you have the perfect undefeated Dodgers and the perfect undefeated Padres. And this is pretty tremendous. And, the Padres every night a new hero. Jackson Merrill just got his contract. That's amazing. He's such a young stud. Listen, $140 million guaranteed in the bank. That's absolutely incredible. But, you take a look at the contract, I actually even think that, he could have made even more money. That's how great I think he is. And, Michael King was unbelievable. Dominant performance, 11 strikeouts. Guards obviously have some guys who can flat out rake. So this was pretty awesome from a Padres perspective. 6-0 to start the season. 7-0 for the Dodgers. I told you, bet the Padres to make the playoffs. I read your tweets, every single one of them, when we did our baseball picks before the season started. I think for a lot of smart people, and I was surprised by this. I was really surprised. They viewed the Padres' inactivity for the offseason as a downgrade. The Padres were that close to getting to the World Series last year. So I have no idea what the haters and the critics and the media elite and the seam heads were looking at. We bet the Padres to have the over on their win total, which at the time was only 85.5, and, to make the playoffs, and, everyone was all in on the Mets and 3 teams from the NL East. Mets are scuffling. Braves are winless on the season. They lost 4 straight in San Diego, scoring 7 runs in 4 games. Loving everything we're seeing from the Padres. And this is not some kind of random start to the regular season. Padres have that kind of juice and that kind of talent. More baseball coming up in a little bit, but what a night last night in the NBA. And if you had the over for Nikola Jokic in points, or if you had Jokic getting a triple-double, congratulations. You had to enjoy watching that ticket cash. And, it's funny, right? The bottom of the screen read Timberwolves able to win, and they do. And Westbrook with that foul. You just can't foul. 0.1 to go. What the hell was that? Absolutely insane. The win and the loss, and Jamal Murray didn't play, that's the only thing that would, at the end of the day, make you say that it's not the greatest performance in Jokic's incredible history. Listen, when you start talking about Nikola Jokic, this guy is an all-time great. Could have played in any era. Won, obviously, multiple MVPs. And he obviously, has won a championship, and he's been terrific. And, the Denver Nuggets, when you look at their odds to win the Western Conference, it's pretty great in terms of plus 600. OKC's winning a championship. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. But I think that when the playoffs start, the Nuggets will end up having the second best odds. Best player, they have championship experience. We'll see where Jamal Murray is in terms of his health, but I think that's where we're headed and where we're trending. Also, I want to be clear about this. I love Jokic. I'm obsessed with Jokic. He's an all-time great, and he should have won the MVP a 3rd time when Embiid won it. Listen, I think voter fatigue is asinine. SGA is the MVP. SGA is the MVP, and there's no doubt in my mind. I've said it before the season, mid-season, during the season, 2 weeks left in the season. SGA is unequivocally the MVP. Now, speaking of genius and greatness, are you kidding me, Steph Curry? 52 points last night. We told you that we love the Golden State Warriors to spank the Memphis Grizzlies and cover the spread. I was surprised how low that number was. I know the game was in Memphis, but Grizz are a mess. They fired their coach. They can't win. That organization is rudderless. Anytime you get one of these games, that's a throwback from Steph, who is an all-time great, a top 10 all-time player. 12 threes, 52 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals. You know, and I can understand why folks want to bet on Golden State come playoff time. Steph is Steph, Draymond's Draymond, Kerr's Kerr. Jimmy Butler, love him or hate him, he is one of the most prolific playoff performers in the last 20 years in the NBA. I mean, let's, for the sake of fairness, give credit where credit is due. So I can appreciate that, but listen, I think that when it's all said and done, the Warriors are not going to be in the Western Conference Finals. I think that, frankly, the Nuggets are better, the Lakers are better, and as you know, I love OKC to win the Western Conference. No legit homecomer for Mike Budenholzer in the return to Milwaukee. No homecoming that was legit for Budenholzer. Giannis and the Bucks defeated the Phoenix Suns, and obviously there's no Kevin Durant. And boy, you want to talk about two teams that you had high hopes for. I know I did, especially Phoenix. My NBA preseason bets, I'm going to cash them all, except for Phoenix. My goodness, what a disaster. That is a waste of talent, time, effort, money, energy.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the sports betting network.
The tournament may be winding down, but the betting action never stops. Major League Baseball's back. NBA, NHL playoffs are around the corner. Masters, NFL draft just weeks away. Stay ahead of every opportunity with a VSiN Pro subscription for just $9.99 and get daily best bets from the VSiN hosts and the guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video access on the VSiN Watch app, plus our MLB season betting guide and upcoming Kentucky Derby betting guide. No matter the sport, VSiN Pro has you covered. Sign up now at vsin.com/subscribe for just $9.99. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. Welcome back. Make It Rain with Adam Schein. How about the Arizona Diamondbacks and the New York Yankees from last night in the Bronx? And that's a tremendous win for Arizona. Really was. And you got to give credit where credit is due. When you take a look at what transpired in that 8th inning, Suarez with that grand slam when it seemed like the Yankees were destined to remain perfect on the start of the season. Off of Mark Leiter, I had no issue with Aaron Boone staying with Leiter as opposed to going to Luke Weaver. Devin Williams is on paternity leave, so not going to Weaver for 4 outs and that kind of situation. Listen, no one, there's no bigger critic of Aaron Boone than me. I think that, I'm not going to rip him on not going for the 4-out save on a cold night on April 1st against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I choose to credit Arizona more than anything else. 2 outs, 2 strikes, bases loaded. You got to give credit to Suarez as opposed to going nuts here. And listen, I think Arizona's a truly strong team. You saw Corbin Carroll, 2-run jack in the 3rd. And, this was a night where Burns did not pitch well, but obviously he's a big-time ace. And, we took Arizona preseason to make the playoffs. We're still going to believe that is the case. And even though you have teams in that division that are piping hot, you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks and you have to believe that this team, Marte is one of the best second basemen. Outfield is loaded. I love what they have in terms of pop at the corner positions and behind the plate. Big believer in the Arizona Diamondbacks. And look, from a Yankee perspective, Anthony Volpe hit the home run. Dominguez hit the home run. That's obviously good news and good signs here for the New York Yankees. So not going to go nuts here when you look at anything negative for the Yankees. They weren't going to go 162-0, so Diamondbacks win. And by the way, Diamondbacks, I think, on paper are actually a better team than the New York Yankees. I said I felt like the top 6 teams in all of baseball were in the National League before the season started. So that's where we are right now with regards to everything going on with the Diamondbacks and the Yankees. We'll get into a betting preview of the ball game tonight between the two teams coming up a little bit later in the show. Listen, we mentioned to start the show that Jack Leiter pitched a gem today, this afternoon, a little day ball for the Texas Rangers against the Cincinnati Reds. How about what transpired yesterday with Nathan Eovaldi? Eovaldi was brilliant yesterday. Absolutely sensational. I mean, that was incredible. 1-0 shutout. The Texas Rangers over the Cincinnati Reds. That was amazing. And how about Eovaldi? I love the fact that he went the full distance, 99-pitch shutout. His second start of the year, 9 innings pitch, 0 runs, 0 walks, 8 Ks. That is as majestic as it gets. And listen, we took the Texas Rangers, as you take a look at their season profile, we took them to win the pennant. The odds were, certainly juicy. Right now you can get a plus 750. And when you're getting Eovaldi and DeGrom and Leiter pitching like this, I mean, it changes the complexion of everything here. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that even in picking the Rangers, that I believe that these guys are going to be a model of consistent health. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do that in any way, shape, or form. But I do think big picture here that if you get these guys to be healthy for most of the year and or healthy when it matters down the stretch and in October baseball, Texas Rangers, baby, I fully believe in this baseball team. How about 4 straight games with a homer for Kyle Tucker? Are you kidding me? And honestly, this was predictable. When we talked about Kyle Tucker and we talked about the impact that he was going to have when you analyze everything going on with free agency in Major League Baseball, we made the case that the most important signing of the entire offseason, bigger than Blake Snell, bigger than Sasaki, bigger than Juan Soto, in terms of impact for the year, was going to be Kyle Tucker going to the Cubs. 4 straight games with a homer. The Cubs beat the A's. It's sad and embarrassing and pathetic that there is a baseball team playing in Sacramento, more chairs in the outfield. It's like I'm going to my son Theo's Little League game, and that's not what you need for Major League Baseball. Kyle Tucker, this cat is absolutely locked in. Cubs season profile odds board fascinates me. I picked the Reds to win the division. Obviously, it's been an up and down start for Cincinnati, but the Cubs at plus 135 to win the division. That was my toughest team I left out of the playoffs. That's one I'm just going to keep my eye on here over the first month of the Major League Baseball season. How about Sandy Alcantara? That was absolutely incredible last night, tossing 5 solid innings for his first win since 2023. Second start of this year. Pitched great in the first one. That was the opening day game with the Pirates and Alcantara and Skeens, and I mean, just incredible. The Marlins able to beat the Mets, which I'm not surprised by, and this is the problem here with the Mets, right? And they've split so far in a couple of games, Mets-Marlins, first 2 games of a series, but there are going to be, if you are a Mets fan, so many games this year where you are going to have, at the end of the day, you are going to have so many games that you go into where you're going to have the inferior pitcher on the bump. And that's why I don't believe the New York Mets are making the playoffs. You take a look at the Mets and their board, I'm telling you, and I said this, and I bet this, and I predicted this, and it's, it's April 2nd. I'm not doing any victory laps here. But I thought the best preseason Mets bet, the 2 best bets, missed the playoffs under for wins. And, it is interesting, and I do think that this kind of sucks if you're a Marlins fan, one of the 5 people who root for the Miami Marlins. How about they asked Juan Soto after the game about, the Mets trading for Sandy Alcantara? I mean, by the way, Mets are going to want him. Yankees are going to want him. Cubs are going to want him. Red Sox are going to want him. Any big market team that's thinking about making a push for the playoffs absolutely will be in the mix for this cat. Maybe we'll see another team like the Mariners or the San Francisco Giants get involved, but I really think that Alcantara is special, and he could certainly be a difference maker. Sadly, not for the Marlins, but for a team that matters down the stretch of the baseball season. How about Logan Webb pitching 7 strong innings? Giants beat the Astros. Logan Webb might just be the most underrated pitcher in Major League Baseball. And quietly, Giants are off to a great start. And I love that. And I love the fact that the National League West is going to be competitive. I think the Giants, and if you noticed, and I know that you did, I didn't touch the over-under for San Francisco. I think they're really in that 80 to 85 win range for this campaign. They certainly have the market, the money, the quest, the want to go out and make a trade and spend money, and they've been close but no cigar on so many free agents in recent years. And, I think that someone like Alcantara to San Francisco would obviously make a big difference. Logan Webb was absolutely sensational, and you look at it, the Dodgers are perfect. The Padres are perfect. Diamondbacks have gobs of talent, but no one is going to run away here with anything when you look at it from the standpoint of the National League West, including the Dodgers, who are going to win 105, 110 games. I mean, take a look at the National League West standings. I mean, this hits at home. And I love how we have it ranked and rated here with the, not only the standings, but the odds to win the division, which I think is noteworthy because, Giants are ahead in terms of wins and losses, but, the Diamondbacks, in their odds, it's certainly better. And I would agree with Vegas here, and that's exactly how I rank it. So that's some really good stuff. And just to update you on some of the live action going on here with Major League Baseball, we mentioned that 3-1 lead for the Cardinals in the Cardinals-Angels game. This baby is now tied up at 5. That is tied up at 5 apiece right now in St. Louis. So we have the Cardinals and Angels tied up at 5. The Royals and the Brewers, that is knotted at 1-1, top of the 9th. I told you, and I placed it. Look at how the odds shifted, right? I got it at the break, as I told you. Money line, plus 390 for the Kansas City Royals. So, listen, we're all in. Go Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino, Sal Perez, George Brett, Frank White, Dick Hauser. Royals baseball, baby. Let's go.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Oh, baby, put your skills to the test in the Hoops and Horses Pick'em Challenge. Brought to you by our friends at First Bets. Sign up for free to play at vsin.com/hoops and horses. Make your picks for Saturday's marquee horse races and basketball matchups. Top pickers will receive First Bet vouchers, so you can use to bet upcoming races on First Bet, including Kentucky Derby on Saturday, May the 3rd. It's from the hardwood to the home stretch. Play right now. vsin.com/hoops and horses. Welcome back. Make It Rain with Adam Schein. Joining us right now live on the Progressive Guest Line. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. He is the critically acclaimed host of Coast to Coast Hoops podcast. My guy, the great Greg Peterson. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing great. Adam, thank you so much for having me.
I got to tell you, I am amped for the Final Four. I mean, I think you have a couple of great games. I think Florida-Auburn is a true pick'em. I had both coaches this week on my SiriusXM radio show. Bruce Pearl on Monday, Todd Golden yesterday. Obviously, there's familiarity between the two coaches. Golden played for Pearl, worked for Pearl. They played in the regular season. Both coaches talked about that Florida win against Auburn when Auburn was playing brilliant basketball. Both teams are playing well in the NCAA tournament. Auburn was phenomenal against Michigan State. Florida's had a couple of games, obviously, that they had to gut out late and get saved, frankly, by a special guard. Who you got coming up in the Final Four, Greg? Auburn or Florida?
Right now, I'm looking at Florida, and I've yet to lay the -2.5. I want to see a little bit more about the status of G&I Broome because I think that that's very big. He's been banged up, and he hasn't been practicing this week for Auburn. If he's not able to get out there on the practice floor for the entirety of the week, I would be willing to lay the -2.5, but I do think that Florida gets it done outright because I just can't unsee what I saw in the month of February between these two. Florida goes on the road. They win that game 91-80, and not only did Florida win that game, they won that game without their number 2 scorer, Elijah Martin, and Micah Handlogden, who's been a really good rebounder. He's been able to up their defensive effort here over the last month and a half. He was still redshirting at the time as well. So I really do feel like Florida is this year's sort of like Noah's Ark sort of team where they've got to have everything. They've got 2 really good guards. They've got 2 really good forwards. They do a really good job with regards to the analytics as well. Todd Golden is about as sharp as they come when it comes to being able to maximize his possessions, being able to maximize his roster. So right now I look at Florida. I do think that they get the job done outright. Like I said, want to see with regards to laying that 2.5, if we do get a little bit of movement, if we do see Broome out there on the practice floor, if he continues to be held out. And with regards to total, I do like that under. I feel like it's gone a little bit too far with his touching north of 160.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll pay attention to that. I do have Florida winning. That was the pick when the bracket came out, and I'm kind of on the same page with you. I'm just going to go Florida money line. Nice and easy. I mean, it feels like a pick'em kind of game, and we all saw what happened with Florida and Auburn in early February, and I think the game will be even better, even more competitive, but I do think Florida is a better team. And, talking to Coach Golden about how they played down the stretch of February in the SEC, then the SEC tournament, and what that toughness and resilience, what that is all about for Florida basketball, what they did against UConn, what they did on Saturday night, that matters to me, Greg, when it comes to a spot like this. So we're on the same page on Florida. Houston, Duke. Now this one, look, I gave Kelvin Sampson a lot of credit, and this is the only Final Four team that I've missed on. I had Tennessee winning, and shame on me for thinking that. The number makes you kind of tilt your head a little bit and pause. Duke, to me, is like UConn last year. I bet Duke. I sleep like a baby. I know Arizona with Caleb Love ended up covering. I'm going to lay the 5.5 here with the Blue Devils. What are you thinking with Houston and Duke?
I'm going to go with Houston on this one. I wanted to go outright. I just can't bring myself to bet it outright in this one because you know that with Duke, you know that you've got Cooper Flagg, you've got all that size along the perimeter, but I do think that Houston has the similar blueprint to what we saw from Clemson. That's the last team that knocked off Duke. That came in early February, I believe just a few days before the Super Bowl. And with this Houston bunch, they're second in the country at three-point shooting percentage. They lead the country in points allowed per possession. And if you're Duke, you might be able to pull out this game, but you're not going to get exactly what you want on offense because Houston just commits their style. And their style is playing as slow as humanly possible, making things as gross, as yucky as humanly possible as well. And additionally, this is going to be a game that's played out in the state of Texas. I do think that matters in this case. The Duke Blue Devils faithful, they're going to be traveling for this one. You know that they're going to buy up as many tickets as humanly possible, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that you do have a Houston team that's going to be playing in their home state. You know that their crowd is going to be out and out there as well. So I do think that with Houston, they find a way to hold in there. And my lone gripe with Duke, because they're amazing on offense, they're amazing on defense, they've got great size, they just haven't been in tight games. And what happens if they do get in a tight game? I think that Houston can give them that.
Yeah, listen, I understand that. That's an excellent point. Now, to me, it's the flip side of, okay, the ACC conversation was one thing, and when you smoke Baylor and then you smoke Alabama, that tells me it's about Duke, not the competition. But you make an excellent point, especially with the location of the game and how good Houston is. So we're on opposite sides here, but I think you're really laying out your case perfectly. So with all that said, Greg, give us your championship game. And who ultimately is going to cut down the nets?
Now, I did pick on my bracket Florida versus Houston in the title game, and I had Florida winning it. As of right now, I want to see what happens in these final 4 games before I go on it officially, but I do have a tough time going against Duke right now because I do think that with Duke, I do think that they're going to get a game from Houston. If they can get past that Houston game, I actually think that they match up a little bit better against Florida rather than matching up against Houston. And when I filled this out, you didn't know whether Cooper Flagg was going to be 100%, if he was going to be 50%, if he was going to be 75%. Because if you recall, he was held out of the ACC tournament. You didn't know what you were going to get there. Now you know, oh, this guy's 100%. This guy's firing on all cylinders as of right now. So I have a tough time thinking that Duke doesn't win the whole thing. Again, I do think that Houston is going to give them a really good game. But if I had to repick this right now, I would be going Duke.
Okay, all right. So we're going to mark that down. I had Duke over Florida when the bracket came out. We bet it, so we're going to keep going with it. Duke is going to take care of business and ultimately win a championship. I want to talk some baseball with you because obviously your college hoops, your baseball, it's what makes you great here on VSiN. And, you know, I'm curious to get your take, right? I love the torpedo bats. I know you're a Brewers guy. I'm a Yankees guy, so we'll take the fandom out of it after my squad clobbered yours. And you know I got to listen to all these Brewers pitchers, you know, crying foul. That's not right. But I want to get your take, Greg, not only on the bats, but what it means from a betting perspective. Like right now, you go to DraftKings every day. They have home run odds for those who have used torpedo bats. So what's your take on the instrument, and how does this impact you as a baseball gambler?
Right now, I want to see a little bit more information from the torpedo bats before I'm really making any sort of rash adjustments. I know that Steve Mackinnon here at the network, he boosted up the Yankees offense by about 1/4 of a run per game. For me, I haven't done quite that. I mean, I've been impressed by the Yankees offense, obviously, and I do feel like there's a lot of people that are making a little bit too much out of it. Like a lot of people are talking about the bats itself, but it's not like this is the first time they've ever been used. It's not like this is the first time that heck the Yankees have used it. Apparently, Giancarlo Stanton was utilizing something very similar during the postseason last year. So I take a look at this, and I think that a lot of people are making too much out of what is just a rock-solid Yankees lineup in general. And for the Brewers pitchers that are crying, just pitch better. I mean, that was absolutely awful what we saw over the weekend from them. They've got nobody to blame but themselves, and the Yankees knew exactly what Nestor Cortez was going to be throwing out there. He threw out there a dinner of cookies and meatballs, so that was not great from the Milwaukee Brewers. But as of right now, want to see a little bit more information. Certainly it's something that you want to take note of, and we have been seeing an uptick in offense from those that have been utilizing the torpedo bats, but I don't want to make too much out of a 3 or 4 day sample size and make that wide sweeping and in turn maybe over adjust and cost myself money.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent, rational way to phrase it. And normally meatballs and cookies, you know, I'd be all in favor of that for dinner, not if you're a pitcher or if you're a fan of the Milwaukee Brewers. Greg, real quick, is tonight going to be the night? Are you going to bet it that Rafael Devers finally gets a hit?
I would not bet on it until I see otherwise. It appears as though he is trying out for that new movie of The Bird Box, featuring, I believe it's Sandra Bullock with a blindfold on. That has been Rafael Devers this far this season, and I want no part of it until I see otherwise.
I mean, I get it. Good thing I spent $29 on him in my auction league in fantasy baseball. Greg, you're the best. Great stuff as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Let me ask you a question. You want to know where the money's really going? Unlike other sources, our betting splits come straightforward from Circa and DraftKings Sportsbooks. Gives you the best insight where the sharp action is landing. Circa is known for taking the big bets from the professional bettors, while DraftKings, of course, provides that broader market perspective. That means you're getting into the real action, not just the old public money, but the kind of wagers that move the lines. See the percentage of bets versus percentage of handle on every single game across every major sport, helping you make smarter, more informed bets. Get VSiN's exclusive betting splits for as little as $9.99 for your first month at VSiN.com/subscribe. Welcome back. Make it rain with Adam Schein. Time for our news, notes, nuggets, and nightly plays. And how about a little hockey to get us started as my guy, the iconic Alexander Ovechkin, netted his 891st goal of his legendary career, and he trails our guy Wayne Gretzky by just 4 goals for the most goals scored in the history of the National Hockey League. And I'll tell you something, I really think that Ovechkin deserves all sorts of praise and props. And I've made the case, and I understand the championships and the cups and the rings for Sidney Crosby. If Ovechkin played for an organization that was always committed to winning, he would have those rings as well. I'm happy he got the one. And listen, if you take a look at the odds for the NHL and the Stanley Cup and who's going to win this year, there's a lot of smart people who think that it could be Ovechkin's time to shine this postseason. I'm not there. I still think the Maple Leafs will find a way to emerge in the East. I still believe that. When you go back to our Stanley Cup Finals preview show here on Make It Rain, you remember I had Oilers Maple Leafs as my pick, with the Oilers winning a championship. They got to get healthy. Panthers, obviously, after the Marchand deal, they deserve all sorts of love. And how about the Stars? Look, that team is loaded. That team is balanced. And I'll tell you, I mentioned Washington with the odds at 11-1. Don't sleep on the Golden Knights or on the Lightning at 11-1 as well. Can't wait for the playoffs to start in the National Hockey League. Let's get into some NFL and the old tush push. The vote got tabled, and, it's kind of, a lame way to handle voting on something like this. Either you vote yay or vote nay. Either it's passed or it's not. And I think that the league is kind of not really sure what to do here. And honestly, it to me is very easy. Look, I don't like the tush push from aesthetics, right? To me, it's not football. It's backyard football. It's rugby. It's not how the game is supposed to be played. Having said that, the Eagles figured it out. It works. It's legal. It's kosher. And before anyone cries player safety, someone's going to have to tell me at the end of the day where there's evidence that this is going to impact the players. There have been no injuries reported on the tush push. 0. And I don't want to hear about player safety, but hey, let's add more regular season games and postseason games. That makes absolutely no sense to me. And I'm telling you, look at the Philadelphia Eagles futures. And this is, 3 weeks and a day before the draft, and we'll get to schedule release in the middle of May, and that'll be a holiday for us where we start to really hone in on, overs and unders. The Eagles are going to have a Jordan-esque approach when it comes to the tush push. They're going to take this personally. I think when you look at the board basic right now, right? Over on the win total, 11.5, the NFC East champs. Just start basic right now for the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a real shot they'll repeat as Super Bowl champs, a real shot they'll repeat as NFC champs. But that's a nice, easy way to react to the news when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Art Rooney II says Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers feels like it's headed in our direction. And listen, I think that makes sense, and it's pretty crystal clear. Rodgers wants to go to the Vikings. Pretty crystal clear that they're not ready to pull the trigger on that. So I think it's inevitable that Rodgers is going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, I also think, and this is kind of important here, I think that, Pat McAfee's doing his critically acclaimed ESPN show, Pat, AJ, the boys in Pittsburgh, a week from today. and Pat always has Aaron Rodgers on, and they're doing a show in Pittsburgh, you don't think maybe next Wednesday, you don't think, I'm just saying that's very realistic here. I also look at the odds board when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I want to stress this. No one loves Aaron Rodgers more than me. That's, we've documented that for a long time. Love Rodgers, top 6 quarterback of my generation. I'm turning 50. So go with the last 50 years. I'm turning 48. Let's just go with the last 50 years. I don't want to rush the big 5-0. I think that the best bet on this board is over on the win total, right? And normally I've made a lot of money on, betting against Pittsburgh, but over 8.5 plus 115. Rodgers, a monster upgrade over Russell Wilson. They also brought in DK Metcalf, but I wouldn't go crazy here on anything else. This team still has holes, and Rodgers still has to actually sign, right? And if it's not Rodgers, then they better get Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders, which is going to require some kind of creativity on draft day. And I don't think Dart's going to be there at 21. I'm just telling you right now, if you want Dart, you got to have to be aggressive. I think that George Pickens is ridiculously talented. I think that he's going to drive Rodgers wild, assuming he signs there. So this team still has other things they have to work through. I'm not ready to say they're going to win a playoff game for the first time since 2016, which is crazy, but it's accurate. They won a playoff game in Pittsburgh since they beat Alex Smith and the Chiefs. Calendar year January 2017, but Steelers over 8.5. If you believe it's inevitable, and you see the video, Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network had it, of Rodgers throwing the football to DK Metcalf at UCLA, that makes a lot of sense. NFL is going to air 3 Christmas games this year, and first 2 are going to be on Netflix. Night game's going to be on Amazon Prime. And I think this is awesome. And my whole philosophy on the NFL on holidays and on a day that normally is reserved here for the NBA, why can you do it? Because you can. I do think this is interesting, though. I am curious how the sports bettor is going to be impacted here and where they're going to ultimately go and if they're going to bet as heavy on a holiday and streaming when it comes to live betting. Just something to consider here when it comes to the 3 games on streaming services on Christmas. Guardians, Padres coming up tonight. Fascinated to watch this game. And listen, I think that the Padres on the money line, Padres on the run line, Padres keeping the good times rolling. Obviously, that makes sense. We have the Red Sox at the Orioles. And big question is Rafael Devers going to make contact? Even more than get a hit. Just put the bat on the baseball, Rafi. Let's go. I'm going to give you a bold prediction. Red Sox win tonight. Rafael Devers gets a couple of base knocks. 2. That's right. 2. He can't keep striking out for the rest of the season, can he? Yankees Diamondbacks at the stadium tonight. And, you take a look at the Yankees and you have to imagine they're going to be able to bounce back after what transpired late. Yankees minus 142. Have to like the New York Yankees to bounce back against Arizona. We're at a stage right now where why would you ever bet against the Dodgers? And I know in theory at some point they have to lose. You could check pitching matchups. You could check about, how their offense matches up against the opposition's pitcher. None of it really matters. Dodgers on the run line. Yeah, that feels about right. Time right now to give out our best bets, and as always, they are brought to you by G-Bank, official bank of Visa. G-Bank is up in the all ante with a $750 bonus for our new G-Bank Visa Signature Card customers. First new customers who spend $1,000 on the eligible purchase within 90 days from account opening get a $250 bonus. In addition, if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within 30 days of the account opening, you're going to receive another $500 bonus. That's potentially a $750 bonus. Apply now. Visa.com/GBank. Visa.com/GBank. It is subject to the old credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. Best bets. Let's go with the over. I like the juice here. Tariq Skubal, our guy. 7.5 strikeouts. He's going up against the Mariners. Plus 120. You're welcome, America and Canada. Stay tuned to VSiN after Make It Rain. Follow the money. I love this show. Love Mitch. Love Paulie. How about Iron Eagle? one of my all-time favorite human beings, the best play-by-play voice in the business. What a spot today on Follow the Money with Mitch and Paulie. That is tremendous stuff. Then it's, of course, VSiN Primetime, and then cashing out all night long. Thanks to Maddie and Sean and Lazaro and the entire crew in Vegas, our incredible producer, Mike Cohen. Talk to you mañana. Make it rain with Adam Schein.